The conversation over gun control. Frustration grows as critics say President Joe Biden is not doing enough to address the Uvalde, Texas shooting and gun control amid growing calls to do so. All this as protests gather in Houston as former President Trump and other prominent Republicans are set to speak at the convention of the National Rifle Association today. To discuss, let's bring in ABC News White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks and Congressional correspondent Rachel Scott and Erica Simon from KTRK, the ABC TV station in Houston. So welcome all. Rachel, let me begin with you. You're in Houston at the NRA protest, which we're hearing behind you there. Walk us through what you're hearing and seeing.
Yeah, well, Terry, we are nearly 300 miles away from Uvalde, and this is the scene that we are seeing play out here at the NRA convention. On one side, you have protesters lining the streets, and on the other side, just over here, you see the police, the law enforcement in front of the convention center as the NRA convention kicks off today. This has been a very heated scene playing out here. You hear people saying it could have been your grandchildren, shouting, "Shame on you," chanting, "Do not go inside." These people out here are feeling what so many Americans are feeling, the outrage from that mass shooting that killed 19 children. 19 children and 2 teachers just 300 miles away in Uvalde, Texas. And inside, we talk to gun owners who say they don't feel like guns are the issue in this country. But I will tell you, Terry, that the majority of the people that we did talk to inside that are attending the NRA convention, that are NRA members themselves, they say that they do actually support some type of reform, some type of change. And we know that our polls show that 89% of Americans support expanded background checks. The folks that I talked to inside, almost every single person that I talked to say they would be for that as well. And they ask the same question that some people are asking out here. How did such a young person get such a powerful weapon, Terry?
How did someone who was so young and who'd also posted conversations about violent threats and posted conversations about how he had tortured and killed animals, how did that guy walk in and get that kind of a gun? Let me now turn to Erica. So, Erica, you know, the whole country's heart is breaking, and as Rachel rightly says, we're also outraged about what happened. How are Texans responding to this convention and the tragedy in Uvalde?
Certainly, Texans share the heartbreak that so many Americans and people around the world share, right? We unfortunately have been home to several mass school shootings. Santa Fe a few years ago, Uvalde now. It's tough to keep going through this over and over and over again. As you know, we're talking about babies, innocent, defenseless children who are simply sent to school that day to learn, teachers who heroically shielded them. So it's a tough spot for a lot of parents and people in the community. As Rachel said, there's a lot of passionate people on both sides here behind us. We're in downtown Houston as well, but you can really see the passion online. You can hear it on the streets. There's people with signs, and at this point, since we've touched that demographic, children, a lot more people are speaking out who normally may not have in previous situations, and they are asking for change. Everyone may not know what that exact solution may look like, but they agree something has to be done. So people have been messaging me all week. We've seen it on a lot of our social platforms. Our viewers have been weighing in, but it's been a solemn week. Many of us have had to take a beat and really process yet another tragedy and then change from tragedy and grief to action. What is next? And that is why a lot of people are here behind us. They are wanting to hold leaders accountable and ask, what's next? What are you going to do about it so that Texas is not again in the spotlight with yet another school tragedy?
And Erica, if I could follow up, yeah, this is my understanding. This is the 5th mass shooting on Texas Governor Greg Abbott's watch. It's his responsibility to protect the citizens of Texas and the children in particular. And I want to ask about his role in this. He came out yesterday with that press conference, which ended up being a tissue of falsehoods, a litany of falsehoods, whether intentional or unintentional. We don't know, but certainly what he said was flat out false. And I guess he was supposed to speak in person to the NRA, but he has backed out of that. Well, what do you make of Greg Abbott's role right now, what he's going to do at the convention, and how Texans are perceiving him?
Listen, Terry, people are fed up. Texans are fed up. Now, Governor Abbott has an overwhelming majority of support and has had it in previous years. But again, the same people who may have been silent in the past are speaking out against Governor Abbott. They're saying, look, we understand there are mental illnesses in the community. We understand that you can't always stop deranged people. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with you. It stops in Austin, in Texas. It starts at the top and goes down. It all has to do with policy, and it all has to do with how you're putting yourself out there in terms of wanting to prioritize protecting our children and our community. You're absolutely right. He was set to speak here in downtown Houston at the convention, but he chose instead to be at a news conference down in Uvalde today. He sent a pre-recorded message to the attendees, so they will see him in some form or fashion. Other leaders have pulled out. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, he says he is not going to be here. Several other Texas senators will not be here as well. There are still some on tap inside who are scheduled to deliver remarks. Obviously, former President Donald Trump, Senator Ted Cruz, and a number of others. But unfortunately, you know, this week, at least as far as the polls, a lot of people not happy with Governor Greg Abbott. And to your point, in those news conferences, many felt that he just missed the mark, to be honest. You know, we know that information comes in early, and there's things that you don't always know up front. But there's some things that turned out just to be downright false. And some people felt that it was inauthentic, it was not genuine, and that he could have done a lot better, not only comforting a grieving state, but actually getting something done going forward and lining out what that would look like. So some feel that wasn't done, and so that's what you're seeing in terms of a lot of these passionate protests go. People are tired of it. They say they want answers now, today, not for another tragedy, not for another week, right now.
And we will see if they'll get them. We have this ABC News Washington Post poll that Rachel mentioned that found 89% of Americans, 89% support universal background checks on gun purchases. 86% support those red flag laws that allow courts to confiscate temporarily weapons from people who have been deemed to be a danger to themselves or others. So, Rachel, as you were saying, you've spoken to some of these conservative lawmakers on the issue here in Washington. I love this clip. I want to see it again. This is Rachel Scott trying to get some answers here in Washington.
Type of action when it comes to gun reform. Is your party wrong on this? Are you wrong on this?
We need to look at what solutions have worked and haven't worked.
But if the majority of Americans say background checks,
ma'am, I realize you have a point of view. I've been happy to answer.
It's the point of view of the American people, sir.
All parents, how their school's doing for school safety.
But background checks, red flag laws wouldn't take away guns.
Okay, would you like me to finish, or you want to do it? Okay, you do it.
Yeah, Rachel, they sure didn't like being confronted with those questions, and good for you for keep swinging away. We could see that lawmakers might be meeting in the middle to find a way, they say, to address some of these issues of mass shootings and gun reform. What is the status of trying to get some of these things that vast majorities of the American people support, get them into federal law?
Well, Terry, I will preface this by saying that we have certainly been here before. There have been mass shootings before in the United States, and after it happens, there is a moment, there is a period where lawmakers hear these people. They hear the people who are shouting for change, who want reform, and they start talking about it. But the big question is, what, if anything, will actually get done? As you know, Terry, in the Senate, Democrats need the support of 10 Republicans at least in order to pass gun legislation, in order to pass any legislation. As of right now, they do not have 10 Republicans on board. But what has happened is that you have these two sides that have, at the very least, started to talk. You have a bipartisan group of about several senators who are having these negotiations. But they left for recess for the next 10 days. And so now you have a moment in time where we are facing the same question again. What will change? What will happen? Will lawmakers move in the direction of the American people? Will they move in the direction of what these people want behind them? What these people are saying that they need change, not only for themselves, but for their future. I mean, take a look. So many of the signs here, Terry, are about the kids. It's about the children. This is a moment in our nation violence history right now, where so many people are asking, what is the future of our country going to look like, Terry?
What will change? That is the question right now, and the fact that these were children that were slaughtered, I think has driven everybody to the point, a breaking point. But we'll see if it means anything. Mary Alice, President Biden is expected to visit Uvalde on Sunday. So what's the latest from the White House?
Yeah, he's planning to meet with victims, meet with families, meet with community leaders. I don't think that someone's expecting sort of a new policy proposal from this White House anytime soon. We've heard the president talk about where he stands on this issue. He's for sweeping reforms. He's pitched things like a ban on assault weapons. I don't think that anyone is holding their breath for Congress to pass something so broad like that. I think the things on the table right now in the Senate are much more narrow, much more modest in scope. But the line we hear from Democrats is fine, let it be anything. What they argue is that doing nothing hasn't helped. We know that gun violence is only on the rise. Mass shootings are only becoming more frequent. So often we hear from Democrats, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good here. Pass any kind of small restrictions that would just make it a little bit harder for people to get their hands on these weapons of war.
Absolutely. That debate has been stymied and stalled before. It does feel like, at least in this moment, so soon after this atrocity, that there's something in the air. Rachel, Erica, Mary Alice, thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.